Hello internets, this is Brad Borne, this is the 7th World 3 report. I had to start the video already, so excuse me for this already going on. But this is actually a recording of me animating two of the pirate reaction clips. I showed earlier kind of the different steps in making all of them, but I figured I'd just go ahead and hit record and let you see how I actually animate. I don't want this to sound too pretentious or anything, you know, assuming that you actually want to watch me animate or whatever, but a lot of people ask me how I get the motions so smooth, and more than anything I just want to show this takes forever to do if you want to get something, you know, really moving correctly. You can see I do everything piece by piece and it takes forever. This is actually running at 50 times, so all in all on those two clips there was about 7 hours of work. You're gonna see about, you know, a little less than that because one of the clips I lost, but it's probably one of the ones I think it was one of the ones I was having the most trouble with, so I wouldn't worry about that. And you can see here I actually slow it down to see every little frame how it's going. But instead of me sitting here and talking about this animation the whole time, I thought I'd address one of the more pressing issues in video games right now. And you know, what's lit the internet ablaze on all the gaming sites is the question of whether video games are art or not. And you know, I understand that if you hate video games, you'll probably want to say that they're not art, but you know, to be a critic of a professional critic of a certain medium that in itself was once not considered art too, and to say, you know, that video games will never be art, you know, that's a pretty weighty argument. Not, I don't think most video games are art, which I would agree with, or you know, anything like that, or they're not my type of art, or they're not a particularly high art. But you know, if you find any irony in watching me, you know, spend 7 hours on personal creation, you know, video games is basically the medium that I chose to express my creativity, and it's a very singular vision, the games that I make. You know, it's just me. On the Fancy Pants Adventures in particular, you know, they're my games basically, and you know, as an artist, I find it, you know, utterly insulting to someone say that no video game ever could possibly not be art. Of course, I'm referring to Roger Ebert, and you know, hopefully you've seen his argument or whatever, and it's just utterly preposterous to even consider such a thing. And you know, something like you could say, are video games, you know, are they art themselves, or just because they're made up of art? You know, like would Halo 3 be considered art? Would playing online in Halo 3 be considered experiencing art just because it's made up of art? You know, it has a soundtrack, it has graphics, and stuff like that. And I would say, you know, I don't know, something like that. You know, most video games people don't really get into for the artistic experience. It's, you know, very competitive, or it's more of when somebody wants to really get lost in a game, you sort of get this transfer of emotions, you know. And of course, the first problem is actually defining art, and I've seen a lot of people say, you know, can't be defined, or throwing out really general definitions. But you know, I personally would consider art almost to be almost in a way a bit spiritual, you know, if that makes any sense. But it's sort of you could say like a celebration of the laws of the universe, you know, which has absolutely nothing to do with if there's a God or not, so I don't want to bring up that argument or anything. But you know, art itself sort of creates something more that usually can't be expressed in a singular you know, communication. Like you can portray certain emotions through a story, you can bring people on a journey. You know, once an object becomes something more, you know, than the sum of its parts, it you know, it becomes artistic. It kind of breaks the barriers of what you can actually express, you know, with just one thing. And so on that note, on, you know, saying that art is something that makes you feel, you know, something that's distinctly human through something that isn't human. It's not experience itself. It's not going on a journey. You know, you look at a painting, you can kind of feel what the artist was feeling. That artist is using a painting to convey that emotion to you. Like his like save state, basically, if you want to get a bit nerdy with it. And so with certain video games in particular, the two that really go around, are Braid and Shadow of the Colossus, and I absolutely agree with those two choices. Shadow of the Colossus is one of my favorite games ever, and it's a game really that's about a journey, and you're going through these motions. You know, the controls are a bit odd, a bit loose. You know, there's a few problems. I think the run cycle is utterly atrocious. And but together it becomes this way to really let the player kind of reflect on his own actions. You know, the player's actually doing something, and the real art in that, you know, it's really easy to spot art in sort of irony, and you know, I'm not going to give anything away, but you know, the journey is in what you accomplish and where you go with that. And you know, the sense of isolation, and it's really, you're just kind of bathing in being alone in that game, and that's something that a really good painting, a really good song would convey to you, something that really speaks to you like that. And you know, I think the best games are really about being on a journey. You know, they focus on character and that character's personality, and focus on where that character would go. And I think, you know, really good art's always a journey. You can sit and listen to it and just be you know, be transported, and really, you know, go through and feel something. And like Braid in particular, as far as the gameplay goes, you know, I would argue that gameplay itself, like the feeling of being that character, is an art. Is just as much of an art as the visuals or the sound is. So I don't really even like the argument, you know, video games made up of art, you know, and then people usually leave out the actual interaction, like the feeling. And the thing with Braid, the puzzles themselves they very closely relate to kind of the little ambiguous plot that's going on. So like, you have a ring, and the idea with the ring is that, you know, you're caught in this moment, and at least to me it feels like, you know, if you were proposing to a girl, that moment seems to slow down and become so meaningful it lasts forever. And when you have the ring in the game, if you put the ring down, then anything near the ring slows down. So the actual gameplay and puzzles are directly related to you know, these emotions of how somebody would feel when interacting with, you know, the girl, the princess, and you know, everyday objects like that. And you know, I hate to really sound pompous on this, but you know, the thing that I really focus about and always talk about in the Fancy Pants Adventures is you know, the very specific feel of the movement. You can't get it right now because everything's going way too fast, but how, you know, it feels to be Fancy Pants Man, how it feels from the very moment you press right on the keyboard and he starts moving, and that sense of weight and that sense of purpose, and you know, that you have this goal and destination, and how it feels to be jumping around this level. You know, I really think that that's an art in itself, and if you want to say that the code that pushes that feeling is an art, you know, I think there is definitely artistic merit to you know, efficiency of code. People say this code's an art, but how that code works, you know, the actual interaction, the input-output, to break it down a bit, of human and interface. And you know, making like bigger video games, I mean, it's really a lot like a symphony, and I think you know, the orchestra is working towards a singular goal, and I think the problem is that a lot of video games fall to the problem that they're very designed by committee. Not so much that they're made by a lot of people, but they're made by a lot of people for a specific purpose of being sold. And so you see, I mean, it's the same thing with movies, though. And so a lot of video games kind of lose their artistic integrity, but you know, it doesn't mean that they can't have it. Another one that I always mention is Aether Flash game, and I think it's such a great art because the gameplay mechanic, I talked to Edmund about this, that the reaching out with the little gecko thing's tongue is you know, the character actually reaching out to his universe and exploring, and it's, you know, a game of discovery, and it really just, again, the gameplay itself is so locked into the art and the feeling and the emotion that the game's portraying. And YouTube's running out, and I'm at about 10 minutes, so I'll probably write on this a bit more on my site, www.bornegames.com. See you guys next week.